was March 4th, 2006, and we had just come from a conference. David Herzog was doing Ever-Increasing Glory up in Kalispell, Montana. And the Lord just really spoke to me about the greater levels of His glory, the more that we can have when the presence and His glory come down. And so as my husband and I, Jim, thought about it and talked about it for the next week, we just said, Lord, please, we want to experience the greater glory. We want things to be new. We want to experience all that you have for us. And so by faith, we received an ever-increasing glory at that conference. And as we drove away, we started seeing the manifestations of that glory. We started seeing people getting saved and people getting healed and people being overcome by the presence of the living God. But on that day, that Saturday, it was just a typical day. We just got up. We had church that evening. We started preparing for what we were going to do that night. And we came together and we had a great service. And the presence of God was there. And as things started coming to a close, we all got in our cars, said goodbye for the week, and started heading home. There were 4 of us in the car. My girls, Crystal and Heather. And then we had another young man who needed a ride home, who had just started attending our church from jail. And so as we were driving down the street, the light was green. And I started to pass through the intersection to head up the hill. And all of a sudden, Crystal screamed as loud as she could, "Stop!" And I stopped the car, and when I did, I went to look at why I was stopped. And coming down the hill was a large pickup with a 8-horse trailer coming at us at 50 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. And he wasn't stopping, and he wasn't swerving. And all of a sudden, he hit my car, and I could feel the energy shift. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I've been hit. I'm in a car accident. Is this really happening? Is this really happening? And then I started to watch as the truck passed through my side of the vehicle, and then I saw it come across my dash, and I watched piece by piece of the car. I watched the first door come through, then the second door, and then the back end of the truck, and then the trailer, and all of the sections of the trailer, one by one, passing right in front of me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is just a weird place. It's actually hit me, but like everyone says, it's in slow motion. And yet, it was in slow motion, but there was a loudness to it. The silence was loud. And so as he passed through, the car remained silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one was speaking aloud. And as I watched the truck pass through my dashboard, I turned to the right, and there was an officer. And all of a sudden, I saw his lights go on, and he began to chase down the guy who was driving the pickup truck with the horse trailer. I completed the intersection and go over to the side to a restaurant that's there. And my youngest daughter gets out and she begins to scream. She's so overwhelmed. There's such an energy in the car. We don't even know what to do with this. I mean, did he hit us? Did he not hit us? What's happening? We saw him hit us. So my natural mind is saying, this is what happened. But my spirit is saying, no, this is not what happened. And so I've got this conflict going on, and no one's really wanting to talk because no one really knows what to say. And all we keep saying over and over and over is, he hit us. He hit us. He just hit our car. But we haven't had an accident. There's nothing going on with the car. So we finally convinced Heather to get back into the car and that we were going to be okay. And we just started to try to relax, and we drove up the hill, and I dropped off the young man who was with us, and we went home. And all of us felt like our bodies inside were trembling. It was almost like when you're traveling in an airplane and the takeoff happens, and that place where it's like your body's going, but it almost feels separated from your spirit. It's a strange thing. It's like your spirit's experiencing one thing and your body's experiencing another. And so we talked about this, and I called Jim and I told him, and the one thing he said to me was, isn't it interesting that there was an officer there? And I thought, okay, Lord, there's an officer there. Let's find him and find out what he has to say. So we found him, and he didn't want to talk about the so-called accident, I guess. And he said, all I saw happen was the truck hit your car. I reached down to pick up my microphone to call in the accident, and when I looked up, the truck had passed through your car. And I began just to pursue him. He says, I can't tell you anything about the accident, but the gentleman did spend the night in jail. So I don't know what ended up happening to him, but I can tell you he never slammed on his brakes. He never swerved his truck. He never tried to miss anything there, but he actually drove through it. It was days before we actually were able to really kind of sleep. And I can tell you that a year later, my body is still not where it was. And about 9 months later, I ran into David Van Koovering, and he's a quantum physicist. And I said, explain to me what happened to me. I'm not the same. And he says to me, Michelle, you will never be the same. He said, in order for that to happen, the angels, people had to be praying for you, and the angels began to vibrate your car at the same frequency that the truck was vibrating through, so that when the intersection happened, when the completeness of that thing happened, you were vibrating at the same time, and you were able to pass through each other. And he said, be blessed, and no, you'll never go back to the same thing. And so here I am, never gone back to the same thing. My body sees things different. My spirit hears things different. The presence of the Lord is different. My dreams are different. How I hear his voice, how I understand him is different. And as I got to thinking about this testimony that God has given me, and I got to thinking about in the book of Revelation, where it says that they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. My testimony is that God takes his supernatural being into the natural things of life, and in that, miracles are created. Lives are changed. He intersects into our realm, and he changes things that our minds cannot comprehend, but that our spirits can. And it is about his glory. It is about the greater glory. It is about his presence coming in and changing you and causing you to understand him spirit to spirit. We need to throw away old ideas that the God of the Bible did the miracles then, but he's not doing them now. That's a lie. He is a God that can't keep from doing miracles. He can't quit coming up to his people and changing their lives. He will not stop talking. He will not stop doing. And all we have to do is just go, Lord, I'm here. Come and do it. In the glory are the greater miracles. In the glory, there's a greater increase of those things happening. And the world needs that today. The world needs that today. My life was spared. I have a call. I have a purpose. I have a destiny that I must fulfill. And that he said that day, you shall fulfill it. I am a good God. I care for you. I want you to fulfill all things in me. And I'm just so blessed. And I just want to say to you now, right now, receive the presence of the Lord. Lay down your mind. Lay down trying to figure out things with your natural mind. Understand him spirit to spirit. Come into that place with him where he can show you the supernatural, where you can take the supernatural to the streets, where you can approach the drug addict and now he doesn't need rehab because in a moment he's free. To the person who's mentally ill, in a moment they're free from the chains and the bondages and the harassments that the enemy has so long taken over control with them. Take the greater glory in. As Peter walked along, his shadow healed. Come in and be a shadow healer. Come in and spread the glory of the Lord. Our cities are crying out. The earth is crying out. The atmosphere is crying out for the sons and daughters of the living God to come forward and take their rightful place and come in and enforce the things that the cross took care of. To speak living words to people, to have the words leave our mouth in substance and create the unseen realm and to change the seen things. We are not living in a world that lives by the seen things. We live in the unseen realm. We live in that hidden place with Christ, that place where he's revealing all of the mysteries. This is the time for the mysteries. This season is now. It is come. It is beyond time. He is speaking to his people. He is speaking in dreams. He is speaking in visions. His people are walking in a supernatural way. That's all his heart desires, is to take you into a new realm. Untie yourself to the earth. You've been chained to the earth too long. You've been chained, according to Colossians 2:20. Why are we listening to the elemental things of this world? Why are you laying yourself down to the rules and regulations of this world? It's time. It's time. It's time to come up to a greater level. It's time to have access to all things in Him. He's giving you all things. Come up and do it. He says, go out and heal the sick and raise the dead and cast out devils and take the gospel out so that people are snatched from the pit of hell. It is your time. Go and do this. And I just now release the presence and the things that God has imparted into me. I release through the CD. I release through the spoken word and the sound. I release for you now to do the greater things in glory. I release for you now to have greater visions and dreams. I release now that even the DNA and the blood cells of your body would now start operating and vibrating at a heavenly frequency. A heavenly frequency. There is no sickness in heaven. It vibrates at a different frequency. And truly, God wants to bring heaven to earth. And so I just release now your ability to move into the heavenly realms at a greater level. Move into the new dimensions of God. I break off of you limitations. I break off of you boundaries. None of that exists anymore. None of that exists. There are no limits to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. There are no small amounts. There are no smaller portions. It is the wholeness, and it's the fullness, and it's the vastness of the God who loves you with an everlasting love, a love that will never change, a love that will never stop, a love that will be there no matter what. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. There is no other one. He is the Ancient of Days. He says, I am. I am. Not just the Great One. He is the I am. And the I am desires to be a friend to you. And won't you be a friend to Him? Won't you come into relationship with Him? Won't you come and just sit at His feet and let Him pour over you the mysteries of His love, so that you can impart that to other people? The world is dying. The world is hungry. And I charge you now, take this, go out there, live the supernatural walk. He has a path. He has a path for you. Go and do that now in Jesus' holy name.